Dimension of Chaos is finally here, and there's a lot of cool new decks that you can build using it, and one of them is the deck that's depicted on the Dimension of Chaos regional season map here, and that is Blackluster Soldier Super Soldier. Blackluster Soldier Super Soldier is a new ritual monster from Dimension of Chaos. It's ultra rare, also an ultimate, and remember this is the last main 100 card set that you'll be able to find ultimate rares in, so if you're interested in that, make sure to get them now while you have the chance. So this is an update of the original Blackluster Soldier card that you will see in Yugi's Legendary decks. Here he is, right there. Blackluster Soldier Super Soldier has two abilities to start with. One of them is what players call the Flame Wingman ability. It inflicts damage equal to the attack of any monster that Super Soldier destroys and sends to the graveyard. And the other one lets you summon a Gaia the Fierce Knight, in quotes, monster from your deck when Super Soldier is destroyed. There just happens to be a new one in Dimension of Chaos as well, Charging Gaia the Fierce Knight, and together these two monsters make a potent combo that makes your ritual summons easier to do and more frequent. So Charging Gaia the Fierce Knight, when he is tributed, lets you add any Blackluster Soldier monster from your deck to your hand. So you can get any of these, which means that when you tribute this for a ritual summon, you can go get another. Or you can even get Blackluster Soldier Envoy at the beginning. That's right, the incredibly powerful, frequently forbidden, but now currently legal Blackluster Soldier Envoy at the beginning now has an easy way to search it out of your deck, but only if you play with the other Blackluster Soldier cards. So, the ritual that you need to summon the Super Soldier is the Super Soldier Ritual. This is an exact ritual. You need to tribute exactly 8 levels worth of monsters from your hand or field in order to summon any Blackluster Soldier ritual monster. So this works for both. And you can also banish this along with the Light and the Dark to summon a Blackluster Soldier ritual monster from your hand in much the same way that you would summon the Envoy at the beginning. So what you want to do is figure out your combinations that make 8. You want to tribute Charging Gaia the Fierce Knight as much as possible, so you need some level 1 monsters. My favorite is Sphere Kuriboh. Sphere Kuriboh has an ability that lets you banish him from the graveyard as one of your monsters for a ritual summon, so that's really useful. You can either use him for 2 ritual summons, or you can use his other ability. When your opponent's monster attacks, you can discard him to your graveyard to switch that attacking monster to defense position. And in that way you can both block an attack and then later banish Sphere Kuriboh as part of your ritual summon. And that's a light and dark pair, so if they both wind up in the graveyard, you can use Charging Gaia to search for your Envoy at the beginning, and then summon that as a follow-up for your Blackluster Soldier ritual monster. Another monster that is level 1 that you can use, let me just move these out to the side, is Super Soldier Soul. Super Soldier Soul has an ignition effect that you can use. It lets you ditch a Blackluster Soldier from your hand to make its attack 3000 and change its name to Blackluster Soldier. That's not the effect that I'm concerned with. What I really want is its effect when it's in the graveyard. You can banish it to search your deck for either a Beginning Knight or an Evening Twilight Knight. Move these up just a bit. And right now, in this deck, I'm playing 2 of each. These 2 cards allow your Blackluster Soldier ritual monsters to gain the powers of their retrained versions. So for example, Beginning Knight, if you tribute it for one of your ritual summons, gives your Blackluster Soldier both of the abilities of Blackluster Soldier Envoy at the beginning, and you can use both of them in the same turn. So say I tribute Beginning Knight and Manju of the 10,000 Hands for Blackluster Soldier Super Soldier. Just move that down, make sure you can see everything. There you go. My Super Soldier will inflict damage equal to the attack of monsters that it destroys. It'll be able to banish a monster once per turn, any position, and it'll be able to attack twice. If it destroys a monster by battle, it gets that second attack right in a row, which will then also trigger the first ability if it hits another monster. Or, if your opponent has 3 monsters, you can attack one, attack the next one, and then banish the third, because you also don't lose your attack when you use the ability granted by Beginning Knight. So in some ways it's even better than Envoy of the Beginning itself. But why choose between the two when you can also just drop the Envoy right afterwards? Evening Twilight Night replicates the effects of a card that I'm actually not including in this current build, the Blackluster Soldier Envoy the Evening Twilight, except it's also a slight upgrade. It also gets the Banish a Monster ability, but it can also use, if you're familiar with Psyframe Omega and its ability to banish a card from your opponent's hand temporarily, Evening Twilight Night also gives you that effect. Now, if you use both of these, notice they're both level 4, so they add up to 8. If you use both to summon one of your Blackluster Soldier ritual monsters, it will gain all 4 effects, so it'll have 2 instances of banish one monster on the field, and you can use both. It'll also be able to double attack if it destroys a monster, and it'll also be able to knock out a card from your opponent's hand temporarily. It's incredibly good, if you can pull it off. And, oh, there's also Manju. If you're familiar with Necros or any ritual strategies, Manju is basically a 3-of in all of them. When you normal summon it, you get to search for either ritual monster or ritual spell and add it to your hand. And I'm also going to include a copy of Mathematician as well. You're only allowed 1 at this point by the time you're seeing this, and it can send either Sphere Kuriboh or Super Soldier Soul to the graveyard so that you can use their graveyard abilities. You can also send Beginning Night or Evening Twilight Night to the graveyard as well, and they also have abilities when they're banished from the graveyard. One lets you search for a ritual monster, the other lets you search for a ritual spell when they're banished. So in a perfect world, you would use Super Soldier Ritual, tribute both of these, summon your monster, banish both for Envoy of the Beginning, and then get another ritual monster and another ritual spell. And speaking of ritual spells, I'm also including 1 copy of the original Blackluster Ritual. You might not feel like you need it the first time around, since each Super Soldier Ritual can technically be used twice, but trust me on this, you do. The difference is, Super Soldier Ritual is an exact ritual. You have to add up to exactly 8. Blackluster Ritual is one of the older ritual monsters. It's not like that. You can exceed the number of stars, or the number of level stars needed for the ritual summon, which allows some combinations that normally wouldn't be allowed. Specifically, it lets you tribute Charging Gaia the Fierce Knight, along with either a Beginning Night or an Evening Twilight Night. And in that way you can search for another Blackluster Soldier, like Envoy of the Beginning, while also powering up your Blackluster Soldier with one of the Knight's abilities. The preferred combo is Evening Twilight Night with Charging Gaia onto regular Blackluster Soldier, because that gets you Light in the Dark in the graveyard and searches out Envoy of the Beginning. Moving on, I'm also using plenty of other cards to help make the ritual summoning more consistent. One of them is a field spell, Gateway to Chaos. If you're familiar with Oracle of Zephyra from Crossfolds, you're familiar with the idea of a field spell that gives you a search when it's activated, and then gives you other abilities the longer it stays on the field. When you activate Gateway of Chaos and it resolves, you can add any Blackluster Soldier ritual monster, or any Gaia the Fierce Knight monster from your deck to your hand. And that means you can get Charging Gaia, you can get your ritual monster if you need it. And if you wanted to play some other Gaias, for example, if there was another Gaia in Breakers of Shadow that you would want to use, you could get that. Or if you wanted Swift Gaia the Fierce Knight, you could get that as well. Furthermore, while Gateway to Chaos is on the field, each time a monster card is sent from the hand or field to the graveyard, it gets a spell counter. And you can banish, or you can remove 3 of those spell counters to add a ritual spell from your deck to your hand. Spell counters are also useful for something else as well, but we'll get to that in a minute. And you add counters only once if multiple monsters are sent to the graveyard, but you add 1 for each. So it's essentially each monster that goes to the graveyard from either side of the field or either hand gets you a spell counter here. Next, I got 1 Terraforming to go get Gateway of Chaos, since it's such a good card. I've got the 1 Reinforcement of the Army that you're allowed. I've got Foolish Burial, which acts essentially like Mathematician to get Super Soldier Soul or Sphere Kuriboh into the graveyard. I've got Instant Fusion, one copy of that, because I'm playing with Elder Entity Norden. If you already have an Evening Twilight Night or Beginning Night in the graveyard, you can use Instant Fusion to summon Norden, have Norden summon back your Knight, and that gives you 8 stars worth of monsters to tribute for your rituals. And thing to note, Evening Twilight Night, even though its effect on the field is negated, if you tribute it, the ritual monster will still gain the abilities. So that's something to keep in mind. Trap-wise, I've got 2 copies of Storming Mirror Force. You may have seen the Cosmo cards that are in Dimension of Chaos. They're very good. And Dark Destroyer can't be targeted, but this is a way to get it at least off the field temporarily. Though, I do think that your best shot against Cosmo decks is to let them summon the first Dark Destroyer, survive it through Sphere Kuriboh since it doesn't target, and then summon your Super Soldier with one of the Knights here. Probably Beginning Knight, because if you have Beginning Knight, you can attack Dark Destroyer, inflict 3,000 damage. They bring out their Slip Rider or Forerunner, probably Forerunner. Attack the Forerunner too, that's another 2,800 of them. Then they bring out another ship, and you just banish it with the other ability. They shouldn't do that. They should just bring out something smaller and take the hit. But I feel like a lot of people will not realize that at the time. And that's one of the advantages you get for playing this deck, is that a lot of people aren't going to know what's up. Time Space Trap Hole I think is really good right now. Pendulum summoning is becoming more and more prevalent, as are things like Cosmo, especially with Magispectors also in this set. And there might be another video on this very channel that you could go to learn about Magispectors. But Time Space Trap Hole is good against both of these, shuffles the monsters right back into the deck where they can't be accessed by many of the recursion effects. And finally I got 3 copies of Super Soldier Shield. This is a counter trap that negates a spell, trap, or monster effect that targets a monster on the field as long as you control a card with Blackluster Soldier in the name. And this is also where the spell counters from Gateway to Chaos come into play, because you can remove 1 spell counter from anywhere on your side of the field to bring this card back from the graveyard. And it's banished the second time you use it. But, you know, 2 uses of a negation is pretty darn good. And you can get even more if you were to go into some synchro stuff and play with Psyframe Lord Omega. I feel the extra deck isn't super relevant for this particular deck. I mean, you can use your basic rank 4s, like Abyss Dweller, Castel, that sort of thing. But I think really the most important card in it is Norden for the combos with Beginning Night and Evening Twilight Night. As for where you might want to take the deck from here, since this is just a starting point for you, you could, of course, add the Evening Twilight Night in. And you can get that from Astral Pack 8 at your local tournament store. And if you don't know where your local official tournament store is, you can go on to Yu-Gi-Oh! And use our locator to find it. You might also want to add more copies of Beginning Night and Evening Twilight Night. It's really good when you get those abilities on your Blackluster Soldier ritual monsters, so increasing the chances of doing that is likely a good idea. If you think you're going to run out of monsters to summon, but you don't want to add more, you could always go with Warrior Returning Alive, which can also pick up Blackluster Soldier Envoy at the beginning from your graveyard for extra uses. And of course there's always Soul Charge. And that about wraps it up for Blackluster Soldier. It's a really cool deck. I would recommend just trying it out, because it's shocking how much damage this deck can put out and how disruptive it can be, especially if you get both Evening Twilight Night and Beginning Night for one of your ritual monsters. It's also a whole lot of fun to play, especially because it's one of Yugi's iconic monsters brought into the future with a new and pretty darn cool looking version. For more, you can keep watching our videos here on the official Yu-Gi-Oh! YouTube channel, official Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG. You can also follow us on Facebook, official Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG, and on Twitter at Yu-Gi-Oh! _TCG. That's Yu-Gi-Oh! All one word, no hyphens, _TCG. And Dimension of Chaos was out on November 6th. It's legal now. Go get it.